The Pierce Brosnan era ended pretty crappily. It ended on Die Another Day, which is one of the absolute worst films in the series, but it came back. Bond came back with an awesome punch in the face in one of my all-time favorites in the series, Casino Royale. After the producer Cubby Broccoli, or Albert Broccoli, had died, it seemed like the Bond series went down. Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough were just not Bond, really. But I think Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, the producers, made a great comeback with this movie because it's awesome. They got Martin Campbell to return, and they gotten Daniel Craig, who was perfect. Most people's doubts that said there can't be a blonde Bond were quickly dismissed from the opening teaser with Daniel Craig. It's stylish, black and white, it looks great, and Daniel Craig gets an awesome introduction, and it showcases his acting abilities, and it showcases him in the fight scenes, which was stylish and fantastic, and it was a great opening. It's an origin story that reverts back to Ian Fleming's first Bond book, Casino Royale. It only has more action. The movie right from the get-go has an exhilarating African chase scene, and it showcases a compelling James Bond story that we haven't seen since On Her Majesty's Secret Service with great poker scenes. Martin Campbell did a fantastic job, making this movie's pace work perfectly, even if there wasn't the most action ever, because it's mostly playing poker, and it works perfectly. It's a loyal adaptation, too, unlike a lot of the other films in the series. Vesper is one of my favorite Bond girls along with Natalia and Tracy. She is just an interesting character, and one of the few to actually touch Bond's heart along with Tracy. And Eva Green is just perfect for the role, and of course she's easy to look at too, that helps. Mads Mikkelsen is a versatile and fantastic actor who is perfect for this role, and previously was played by Orson Welles, and he actually did better than Orson Welles. Then again, Orson Welles was in a pretty crappy James Bond movie, but let's talk about that. There was a 1967 parody of Casino Royale. It was a precursor to Austin Powers, and it had big-name actors like Peter Sellers, Ursula Andress, Orson Welles, and it was a pretty terrible movie, but it wasn't from the official James Bond series. If it was, it'd be the worst out of all of them, but it is the worst James Bond movie ever, and I would never count it as a real James Bond film, because it's not. It's a parody, and like I said, a precursor to Austin Powers, only it is absolutely terrible. Not even funny. And there was also a 1954 TV movie on the show Climax called Casino Royale. That's not a James Bond movie either. Barry Nelson was not James Bond. He was Jimmy Bond, and basically, yeah, because that's how the producers of the official James Bond series didn't have the rights because of this, basically. It's kind of complicated, but it's not an official, Bond film. The Daniel Craig Casino Royale is the only Casino Royale that is the loyal adaptation of Ian Fleming's novel. Now let's keep going. The movie has the action excitement of GoldenEye and the compelling story of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and it's not just a good James Bond film, it's just a good film. And that's the best thing you can say about a Bond film, is that you don't only enjoy it as a Bond film, but just as a good movie in general. It mixes awesome action sequences with a compelling story that keeps you intrigued the whole time. And what about James Blonde? Well, he's great. Daniel Craig is actually really good in the role. He's very convincing, and he's not the typical James Bond. This is Bond before he's, well, Bond. And so he kind of goes through changes in the movie, and Daniel Craig does that really well. I believe that he can pull off everything that the previous actors can do. The sex appeal of Sean Connery, the comedic timing of Roger Moore, the seriousness of Timothy Dalton, and whatever made Pierce Brosnan special, and whatever made George Lazenby special. He's able to pull that all off really well, and he is what Pierce should have been. Now we're on to Quantum of Solace, which isn't really bad, but it feels like an art house film more than anything. It sets up this thing called Quantum, hence the title of the movie, and that just didn't really have a big impact on me. It felt like a modern day Spectre that didn't really become a sense of a real threat. The villain's a little weak, and just the whole, I don't know, it's not as slick, it's not as cool as Casino Royale, really. It's a direct sequel to Casino Royale, so right off there, I mean, you have to watch Casino Royale before you watch Quantum of Solace, and I don't really like that either. It doesn't even really conclude the story about Mr. White and Quantum, like I was talking about, which was kind of set up at the end of Casino Royale. And I don't know, not a big fan. I wish they would have continued stuff about Mr. White rather than introducing Dominic Green and stuff, and his stupid sidekick Elvis. It's just stupid. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of the story. I'm not a big fan of the action sequences either. I mean, some of them were pretty good. Like the opening car chase was pretty good. The climax had some decent parts, and midway through was a good aerial sequence. But they're nothing really that great. It's got the editing with the quick cuts and then some of the shaky cam in there that I'm just not a big fan of. And the boat chase was kind of weak. I mean, it's nothing that bad, but nothing really spectacular either. Nothing really stands out and makes this a particularly fantastic installment. It doesn't really resolve anything from Casino Royale either, so really, I don't necessarily see its place, and it's not as rewatchable either, despite having more action. Olga Kurylenko's a pretty decent Bond girl, actually. I kind of liked her character. How she's one of those more independent, tough type of Bond girls that you see in these movies. Some of the examples are like Anya on a sofa from The Spy Who Loved Me, Holly Goodhead from Moonraker, yeah, laugh the name, Carrie Lowell from License to Kill, Waylon from Tomorrow Never Dies, one of those type of characters, the tough Bond girls that still isn't quite as good as Bond, minus Waylon. Daniel Craig is still fantastic as Bond. As far as I'm concerned at this point, he is one of the best. I mean, obviously he's not going to top Sean Connery, but come on, he is a great James Bond. He just completely shattered my expectations. Like, he just exceeded them. He was really great. He's always been great. And yeah, no exception here. And he's really great in the action scenes. Once again, he gets a little more to do as far as action goes, but I mean, still, like I said, nothing special. Like I said, I'm not too crazy about Dominic Green, but the actor they got's actually really good. Mateo Malric is a great actor. He was in Munich with Eric Bana, Steven Spielberg film, and he's good in that movie and he's good here. He's good with what he has to work with, but Dominic Green isn't particularly interesting. It's not a very intriguing villain like Le Chiffre from Casino Royale. I don't know, Elvis kind of looks like the pedophile version of Steve from Blue's Clues to me. I don't know, he's just not a very exciting character. He's really boring and a really weak henchman, if not the worst of the whole series. So Quantum of Solace ain't horrible or nothing. It's actually a pretty decent movie, but it's probably one of my least favorites, and it's just a pretty meh installment. I gotta mention my second favorite actor to play Felix, Jeffrey Wright. He's great in both of these movies, and in Catching Fire. And while I'm bummed that he didn't return for Skyfall, Skyfall was freaking awesome. Skyfall is another one of my favorites of the series. It was the first Bond film I saw in theaters, and the only one I've seen in theaters. It mixes the crowd-pleasing Bond and charisma of Daniel Craig with a compelling story. First of all, Daniel Craig was awesome in this movie. He still played that cold-hearted character to take the new approach, but he's more of a crowd pleaser here. He's absolutely fantastic in this movie, with great one-liners of Sean Connery and everything, and he proves that he is the only actor of today that could have played this character the right way. And after Quantum of Solace was kind of bland and unstylish, this movie was freaking stylish. I mean, it had amazing cinematography that went to the fight scenes and the scenery, and it's got a great direction by Sam Mendes. I mean, these shots are just, oh my god, they are fantastic. Javier Bardem as Silva is like the Joker to James Bond. This guy's insane. I mean, his plan's kind of a ripoff of Alex Trevelyan's in GoldenEye, but it dives into a deeper subplot with Judi Dench's M. We get more M! And Javier Bardem has great chemistry with all these guys. He's insane, he's funny, he knows how to make James Bond uncomfortable. And yeah, he is freaking awesome in this movie. And Judi Dench is fantastic too. I mean, her chemistry with Daniel Craig was just fantastic. She's a wonderful actress, and I love her in the role. Ralph Fiennes is really great in the movie too, and he looks an awful lot like what Ian Fleming says James Bond looks like in the novels, or like the concept art. And look at him, the resemblance is like perfect. The action sequences are slick and stylish, and just like the ones in Casino Royale, and maybe even more so. I mean, none of these action sequences are really as good to me as they were in Casino Royale, but I don't know, these are pretty eventful action sequences that are very intriguing, and Bond shows vulnerability in this in Casino Royale. He seems more like a human in these movies than he really did in any of the other movies. He shows vulnerability, he gets hurt, and he has emotions too, but he's built up in this cold character that we've seen. And Daniel Craig, like I said, does great at that. I like the chemistry between Q and Bond too. I mean, it felt appropriate with Ben Whishaw there because Ben Whishaw was in a film called Layer Cake, one of Daniel Craig's earlier movies. They had good chemistry in that movie too, and it just worked here really well. And Ben Wishaw's a good actor. I mean, he's no Desmond Llewellyn, but it's a good new take on Q that isn't too comedic. So yeah, I love Skyfall. It's a great movie. And yeah, now I'm done reviewing the whole series, but I'll still be doing top tens in March for a bunch of different Bond related things, best Bond actors, and then eventually I'll rank the whole series as a whole. And thank you for watching these reviews. You can predict that, but I'll be ranking tons of things, the fight scenes, the car chases, and everything. So I really hope you enjoyed this 11-minute review. Thank you for watching. So long.